Okay, so welcome, Yedidah. We greatly appreciate your leadership. As always, we begin all things by acknowledging the original stewards of the various lands we are on. We also acknowledge our ancestors. We acknowledge all those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We acknowledge all the elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, and learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. So please introduce yourself to our listeners and viewers and tell us about your remarkable work.
Well, my name is Yedida Yehudah, and I was born and raised in Jamaica in the Caribbean, and moved to the U.S. when I was a young girl, and from there lived there for some while, and then I moved to Ghana. I came to Ghana first in 1986, and then I lived here in 1987, on and off throughout the decade, last maybe decade and a half, and then in 2018 I retired early and when my house was completed, and I moved to live in Ghana. But I've been connected to Ghana and been active since 1986, 87. And absolutely know that this is my happy place, and this is the place where I am planted for a while at least. The Black Dog Project is what we're talking about today. And it's very, very dear to my heart. And I'm very passionate about the project because, and this is how we got started in, I want to say 2018, 2018 or 2019. We were at Feto Afashe Festival in Cape Coast. And there was a procession, of course. They came to the Victoria Park, and there were a bunch of marchers, a group of children dressed in nurses' uniforms, about 70 of them.
Yeah.
And so they had on nurses' uniform. I guess that was their costume for the day. And they all had doll babies. And all the doll babies were white, blonde hair, blue eyed. And I was outraged. Now, that was my tipping point because prior to that, from 1986 until let's say around 2021,
Yeah.
I had never seen a black doll sold or a African girl, a Ghanaian girl with a black doll
Yeah.
ever. And my friends and I always remarked about it. We talked about it, and we always felt a little, angry about it.
Yeah.
But that was the tipping point, seeing those many 70 children marching with white dolls.
Yeah.
And so at that moment, I discussed it with one of my friends. She actually came later and she made the same remark. And I said, why don't we team up? Her name is Keisha Cox from the Wellness Connection. And so she started collecting dolls, putting out Facebook fundraisers and all of that for people to bring dolls. And so in 2021, we launched the Black Doll Project in Ghana. And from 2021 until present, we distribute about 2,000 dolls, yeah. Black dolls, to Ghanaian young girls. And we've been throughout the regions of Ghana. We've distributed dolls in the Ashanti region, the Western region. We've been as far as in Zuluzo. We've been to other places in the Ashanti region, the Eastern region, and of course in Accra and in the Central region, Cape Coast and Elmina and other areas. So, and I have a lot of support from organizations in the U.S., like the Bridge to Africa 360, 60 Degrees, Sister to Sister International, Family Friends, who donate and support the project. So we are just very happy to be able to have this dialogue with our daughters. So we use the Black Dolls as a platform,
yeah,
to talk about self-love, self-esteem, confidence, loving the skin you're in.
Yeah.
We recognize that the reason why our mothers, our parents are buying white dolls for our daughters is because, number one, some of them have never seen a black doll in their life. That's all that has been available to them. And through colonialism, that was left with our people wherever we were, that the closer you are to white, the prettier you are, the smarter you are. I'm sure you're aware of the project, the demonstration project that has been done since the early years from some of our PhD professors around identity and how we see ourselves.
Yeah.
And so that the latest project was done by Anderson Cooper of CNN, and he repeated the program. He was the last person to repeat it to date. They have 5 and 6 year old black girls and boys rather, and they have dolls different colors, different shades, from white to brown to different to very black.
Yeah.
And they all look the same. The only difference is their complexion.
Yeah.
And so they ask these 5, 6, 7-year-old, which one is the good doll? They pick the white doll. Which doll is the smart doll? They pick the white doll. Which doll is the bad doll? They choose the black doll. Which is the one that can't learn? They pick the black doll. And which doll looks like you? Of course, they're black children, so they choose the black doll.
Yeah.
And it's a sad result that over 70% of the children that they interview give these responses, even as recent as 2018, 2019. And it's very sad for our community because it tells a story about how we see ourselves at that tender age. And so if they can have these perceptions at that age, then we can reverse those perceptions starting at that very young age. And so we use the Black Doll as a platform to talk about loving the skin you're in. You are beautiful. To have those type of affirmations where girls and even boys are part of the program, repeat these affirmations, telling themselves that they're beautiful. We talk about bleaching, and we direct that mostly to the parents. You cannot say you love your skin and your daughter or your son see you bleaching your skin, and you don't have to tell your child that that child is not beautiful, because your child is thinking, well, if my mother is dark or my father is dark and is bleaching, then that means I must not be beautiful because they don't like their color, so that means I may not be good. And so these are the type of things that will go on in a child's mind. It's not always what you say. A lot of times it's also what you do. You send a very strong message through your action or through your non-action. And so we speak to all members of the family and talk about being responsible for making sure that the right messages and the right narratives are what we choose in our homes and for ourselves and in our community, because we have to heal. I believe that we have an inferiority disease complex, which I call inferiority complex, in Black communities all over the world. We feel that we're not beautiful, and so we aspire to always emulate the people who we think are the beautiful people. And a lot of times it's very, very subconscious, very deep in our subconscious, and where some people are not even aware of it, and our actions, our choices tell that story, as opposed to sometimes what we actually say. And so when we do the Black Dog program, we have a discussion about all of this. We have a poem that we let the children recite. It's called I Am the Black Child. There's collaboration between educators, churches, community organizations in Ghana, and myself and the organizations that I interface with in the US. And also we have a list of volunteers from diasporians to Ghanaians. We all come together to make this project work. And so we know it's a long-term project because it took time for us to get to this place of feeling inferior. And so now it's going to take time to create a new habit, that habit of where we know that we are amazing and we are beautiful and we're only filled with greatness. And so that's one of the goals of the project, to make sure that our children are empowered and they feel and they know that they are amazing and they're beautiful and there's nothing they can't do. Number two, to make Black dolls available, and for our families and our mothers and our fathers and to choose Black dolls every time they go to buy dolls for their girls. The next goal of the program is also to make sure that the vendors and the stores make the dolls available. So I told you that from 1986 until 2021, I had never seen a Black doll. So part of what I also do is go to stores. If I go in a mall and I see a kiosk with, someone selling dolls and they only have white dolls, I'll have a conversation with them about the importance of making sure that Black dolls are available. ShopRite, Malcolm, all of these stores. And I'm not taking responsibility for the fact that I'm not going to take the credit for the fact that they now have Black dolls, but I have certainly had the conversations with every store that I go in and I see dolls. I tell them, you have a responsibility to make sure that you produce Black dolls here. You make them available, because the same place you buy the white, they also have Black dolls available. Yeah. So now I'm happy to say that there are Black dolls everywhere. So I can direct parents. I give them, but I can direct them to, okay, this is where you live, this is where you go and buy the next doll that you need to buy for your daughter or for your niece or whomever.
Yeah.
And so that is those are the goals that I've set for the program. Now, the long-term goal is to inspire our girls to start developing Black dolls here in Ghana.
Yeah.
Every Black doll you see all around the world, well, 90% of them are made in China.
Yeah.
Yes, let that sink in. Made in China. And so there's no reason why those dolls cannot be produced here in Ghana or somewhere else in Africa. And so that is the very long-term goal for our children to get angry enough to start wanting to create solutions for our local economy and to make sure that they make the dolls here. So that is, I hope I've answered the question.
You answered the
It's a
question
very long
so
answer.
much more, but we thank you so much for the remarkable work you are doing. So, in terms of, because you already spoke about your goals, what are the challenges and barriers that you face in your work, and how are you and your team working to overcome them?
Okay. The barriers, of course, were the original barriers of not being able to find the dolls at all. And part of that is just not being available because parents don't know to ask.
Yeah.
See, in the US, there was a time when we didn't have Black dolls available. And we didn't have Black cards or books with Black faces.
Yeah.
And so we decided in the US that no, we're not going, that's not acceptable to us. And we just stopped buying the white dolls and the white cards.
Yeah.
Right. And supply and demand kicked in.
Yeah.
And so as we started asking for these Black dolls, they, of course, they want our money. So now you have a slew of Black dolls everywhere.
Yeah.
At every price point.
Yeah.
And so part of that is part of the barrier here is that people don't know to ask for what they want, or people don't. So they go into the store and they automatically gravitate towards the white doll because of their misperceptions about beauty.
Yeah.
And so they, even some now that Black dolls are available, they'll still reach for the white doll.
Yeah.
Because that's what they know.
Yeah.
And so it's a consciousness that we have to have, we have to shift.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's a barrier, but it's why we're here.
Yeah.
To make sure that we change that and we create that shift.
Yeah.
And it's through education, it's through discussion, and, you know, just conversation, down to earth conversation with individuals or small groups or large groups, to let our mothers and fathers who are the primary purchasers of these dolls, we let them understand the impact of their decision on their children. And so there's some people who think that a Black doll is a bad thing. It's kind of I don't want to say witchcraft, but that word has been used because that's what they were left with after colonization. Anything Black, any part of our culture that is African, is spiritual, is witchcraft.
Yeah.
And everything that is white and comes from their church and from their schools, which are church schools, is what is perfect and what is good. Yeah. So we have to now, a large part of our effort is dispelling those myths. Yeah. And those misconceptions about, who we are as a people. Yeah. And of course, another barrier was, which is actually getting better, it's improving, is not being able to find Black dolls that are affordable. Yeah. Of course, if people don't know to buy them, they may sit in the store for a while, and the merchant may think, well, it's not selling, so let me go back to the white doll. So I constantly have to go back to the stores and encourage them to, your dolls are too expensive. You need to get some that are a little bit lower, some in the middle, and some higher for all the different, pocketbooks, right? And so those are the barriers that we have. I would say those are the main barriers, but we're working on them. We're chipping away little by little.
And so now, do you have any closing thoughts or calls to action?
Yes. We all have a responsibility as citizens. When you know more and when you have more, you actually are required to do more. And so we don't have to have a huge, massive project and a big, stadium filled with people or a church filled with people to have a discussion about this. I encourage every single person to have these discussions as they go throughout their normal day with their neighbors and when they have gatherings in their homes and, the children and the villages that you're responsible for, reach out and there are a lot of issues that we have to solve. And so I think that we can do it from the ground up. Each person can make a commitment to that every single person that they touch, they bring this information, re-education to our family, our African family. And if you see a program, if you're not able to do that, then support our programs. Support our programs. You can sponsor a program. You can get in touch with me, and if you think that we can have a program in your village or in your school or in your church, in your orphanage, then you can reach out to me, and we can do it as a team. We can do it together. We try to keep the cost as low as possible. We're not trying to fill stadiums and all of that, but the message, and we don't want to become so expensive that we lose the message. We want to keep it basic so that we can focus on the actual message, which is to empower our young people with this feeling about themselves that is positive, that they love themselves and they love their skin, they love their color, they love their hair, they love their lips. Each of us have to also constantly affirm this to everybody who we meet, our sisters, our cousins, the women we work with, the men, because there are men also bleaching. We need to tell ourselves and each other, remind us. We already know, but sometimes we forget. We need to tell ourselves that we are beautiful, that we are smart, we're intelligent, and we have to constantly do that. And you don't need money to do that. You could do that every single day. As you meet, you interface, and we spend time together. So those are my last words.
We so appreciate your time and your remarkable leadership, Yedida. And we will close the way we began this interview by acknowledging the original stewards of the various lands we are on. We also acknowledge our ancestors. We acknowledge all those who toiled without compassion and compensation. We acknowledge all the elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, and learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. Thank you so, so much.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's my absolute pleasure.